What did you do about the bottom of the Apato charter, So the 나도 잠시 집발에 나빠 사질배 대바들 속에 조망 되니 답변지 가와 좋아마다 빨리 좀 돼서 못 돼. 따와 그러면 이제 나오게 텔레비전 사진 탐지에 뭐랑 가야 잡혀요 되나 이제 교실이 좀 좋아 있는 게 벌써 이제로 가디는 좋아 좀 가지고 사파도 받아서 깊이 공부하는 법이더니 이마 레레드니 처음부터 아파트냐 거야 정말 보고 정말 잡혀요. 그래서 뭐저 파체를 나라에나 가다 처와도 마디 바르지 원래 딱 눈에도 마디는 약골 누가 마디 받아 사리지 누가 마디 받아 사가서 나버리도 들이치니 요사리你这个抓了是吧？啊，中间嘛这吧。这东西不认就得，也过来也行。东西看样这个没钱，在爬爬上就可能这个没钱。东西马认吧，东西我头个样嘛的，让别不管东西也可以玩。这东西这真的这我不踏不着是吧？这那么啥就老别人，嘞，第三个这我说东西真不说。마음 잡게 해야 돼. 인당들이 좋아하는 게 말고 서 장글로 탐지를 못하는 처와마다 봐 마영 처와마다 봐 이제 진짜에 버려 방송되는 들이 늘 처와들이 이래 개인 가서 해.
Today's topic will be the topic of impermanence and especially dying. In the Milarepa teachings yesterday, the inner meaning of those teachings, the actual meaning, is really one and the same. Once one has entered the teachings of Buddhism, one begins to contemplate the difficulty of obtaining a precious human incarnation, cause and effect. All the Buddhas have formed aspirational prayers saying, may all beings take death to heart. May we always contemplate death. And also the old Kadampa Geshes have formed aspirational prayers that may all beings each and every day contemplate death and impermanence. If we do not contemplate, like we mentioned before, we do not contemplate suffering, and we think that it is a good thing not to contemplate suffering. But then we are like pigs, not thinking about anything. And without choice and independence, we will have to experience suffering later on. So we need to know the method to prevent suffering through the Buddha's teachings. And that's the reason why the Buddhas have said, may all beings take death close to heart. In many temples and practice places all over there is some written signs where it says death or impermanence. This is a reminder for us, so we continue to think about it.
기록 나빠서 저를 데려다 끼와서 좋아를 말아버려. 처음 맞을 때 답변은 다 로드지 자처리네요. 다 셔도들은 다 마셔버 탑지는 다 메인다 감다고 그들라서 벌들이 백동 제기할 때 꼬박을 했다니 때나 오 마셔 사대를 봐 직당 내 지와 숨은 저가 요리지 오래 대표는 그 니마라는 샤소리 샤나들이 나 소리 말아 봤다 니마 샤소리 좋게 살고 봐 얘네 종들이 너 서로 통과들이 반도 서로 다 얘네를 보고 빼지는 일이 저런 깨왜 니마의 종들이 고바 강강 저와 다 얘를 보고 이러는데 들이 싸고 공부를 해서 사지.
Many people fear death. People who have not entered the Buddhist teachings or who may follow some other traditions do not have deep teachings on birth and death. Sometimes when people get like 70 or 80 years old and they don't, they apply all sorts of methods in order not to die. They take medicines, they take injections, they try hard to prevent death. But actually that's foolish actions because everybody eventually will have to die. Once one is born, one is bound to die. It is like the sun rising in the east. It at all times goes to the western side. It never stops. It always comes closer to the western side. In the same way, from the time we are born, we come closer to our death.
양 자세라네 자세라니만 강시고 말이 양 뒤라니 착각신데 신아 들이진 좋아하고 본듯이 잡는 오 뒤를 쳤대 대시 망보지 잡나 이 척을 따와지 된지도 오늘 척을 따와서 어디지 오지 동카장들 진이요 그랬나 대시 맞잡을 양지 척좀 저기 가래 쉬요 말이 뒤서더니 자세라니는 이 동치 좋아들이 샤지 오늘 동치 좋아
It is important to again and again contemplate the 37 Bodhisattva practices. And this is the only practice that I'm truly familiar with. It is important to explain each of the verses. When one then later reads the root verses, the root words in the little book, then one will remember the explanation, the elaboration on their meaning, and one will really understand. If one doesn't give a commentary on its meaning, then one will not understand. So I will give an explanation on some of the verses of the 37 practices. And the first verse is verse number 4.
There 때는 사제들이 좋아 마다바 레지나 다 참여 오 때문에 시비죠 참여 뛰어왔던 좋아 무시 적자 이거 말도 진거요 말 그때 말이와 됐을 때 강의들 사제 정신 사제 적게 송의 강의들 다고 선생이 뒤에 상대들이 마다바 공부 근데 나는 이제 책지는 상대 마다바 공부 어래 되니 यार वो तुझे जो थोड़ा सामने मता पाको बात है सिर्फ जो को बोले पहना सामने तंग देखिन दे यो तो सामने तना दे जिस वो ता दे जे को ता सामने ले भी को जोड़े सामने ता ना तो को थोड़ी ना को जी ना को ता ना तेरे सामने तो यूं गई हो रहे अरे पेड़ ना ता पोता पे रोपड़ा दे थोने 로브라네 통이 다 로쪽에 놓는 들이서 못하나 오 당한 강과고도 보다고도 얘는 가이제고도 당이 내가 제고도 당 배샤사고도 들이 남년 팀에 뭐 홀로가 이거는 들이 담보 뭐라 좀 들이 강과 좀 들이 배샤 좀 다다 양팀 남년 팀 파미를 내가라 저한테 강을서 못하는 쌍놈지 송요래 오 특히 참아서대로 뭐라도 강과도 들이 고고 보면 또라서 뭐 이렇게 체도 자와도 차차도 세는 샤네 이거 그래가 제기 원래 때 마셔는 보고 같이 싸먹 싸와니 말이 싸먹 싸와니 용띠라고 요 말이 용띠 말하면 내가 제일 내가 맞는데 다 빼놓고 메인을 가야 무시는데 다만나 보트니 자금이 시랍에 맨날 저기 뒤 맨날 채지 대타와 동탁 그요 말이 대탁지 뭐 제베라 다다든 저하고 림바데 띠목이 자시에 빼나 저와 제일 가래도 저와 마디는 가래도 빼나 왜 자기는 이 채지 싸워야 되지 싸모다니 들이 이거 요래 나타내 깔게 공간을 제대로 싸모다는 경도 장싸모다는 들이 데려드니까 저하고다 봐 서로 쏘고라
When we talk about death and impermanence, then many say, I know about death, of course everybody has to die, but one doesn't really contemplate death and impermanence. The Buddha has explained the teachings on death and impermanence, first in terms of the impermanence of the outer universe, then secondly the impermanence of the inner sentient beings, and the impermanence of occurrences such as before seasons and so forth. Death and impermanence is something that we mentally must unfabricate. It is a contemplation that we need to engage in, and then ultimately we come to a conclusion and we think, if this is the case, then this is what needs to be done. So it is something that one needs to mentally fabricate. For example, a child who just graduates from school, maybe at the age of 18, begins to mentally contemplate what needs to be done. One needs a house, one needs a car, one needs some money, one needs to find work in order to get money, and day and night one thinks about then how one can get that house and how one can get that car and that money, and one engages in efforts to achieve all that. In the same way, we need to contemplate death and impermanence. In the same way as we do it when we are concerned about the mundane concerns. If it doesn't arise in our mind, if we do not go through that thought process, then we will not acquire any qualities. One will just not do anything, one will not acquire any education, one may begin to take drugs or drink alcohol, and one will not increase one's wisdom. If one spends one's life in such a way, then this belongs to the domain of ignorance. In the same way, if one doesn't contemplate death, that also belongs under the domain of ignorance. So just as we have to contemplate the tasks that we have to perform in a mundane sense, we also need to contemplate on how death and dying functions.
Tili tere tili tata di kontoke malaka bhamnani samyi na di malaka bhamgo tata aandrang dina na inji tolke maangkala hok tere logo mi aandrang dina na sanchiwa bada wari por chama dina na yore ore tere tere logo mariyeti nungu labiriyeti.
And also in Milarepa's 100,000 songs, there is one song that extensively talks about death and impermanence, and that song can be found on page number 203 in the big black book in the English translation. Rinpoche says today I will not go into great detail of that.
아랑 죽고 저한테들 가보요. 때는 선루지 죽기는 상대가 다 봐. 상로단나. 너지 죽기 지다를 때는 당서 답을 사강이 되네요. 다다다 나올 통째 통고요. 니마 나와라서 사강 됐다 그래. 그럼 뭐 좋게 나올 통째 지금 통고요. 얘네는 사지 동지들은 지다를 능제를 지다는 답을 사강 됐다니. 사야 장미 봐요. 어디서 때문에다 당을 받쳐 지금 깔마다 통고요. 깔마다고 참 살가야 돼. 내가 다다 강한 요리들 반상kam을 요리다. 중앙가에 돌아. 롱 바른 거 뜯기 요리다. 반상kam을 요나. 사강대 빼놓고 무슨 사도독 직당. 사도독 직당. 사강 기본이 즉발이 사도독 주종격 이렇게 되지. 다야 아주 좁잖아. 타라기로 사도독직. 늘제를 한 게지. 어쨌든 더블로 사강대 내 말이라 말해서 못하나. 이게 전에 사강들이 마고 반란권을 로요래 돼서 못하나. 무슨 남한이 보다 치려 때는 깔마깔마로 톡 잡는 토로도가 짜샤르 토로도가 그래서 깔마깔마로 톡 잡는 때는 깔마깔마로 톡 잡는 토로도가 그리 밖에 짜샤르 오지 지금 더블로 사강들이 토로도가 무슨 아주 토하고 올라오면 저렇게 가시는 좋고 털고 그래야지 가시는 좋고 털고 말해야지 어들이 저렇게 되는 연기 제보에 산재 가는 게 선도지 죽기만 다 봐요 하고 되고 선도지 죽기 제보에 들어 되다고 이제 셈을 담아다가 아다다 잡을 사강에 투과자 나자 커피자 커도 나도 좀 투과자 그럴 때 내가 좀 토종을 싸우던 대상으로는 세비도 초와 가리도 저기도 나불는 거 다다 가리사고도 강사고도 나불는 거 사강 토야래 있으면 세비 지고 영모로도 차로로 샘들 코 영모로 빼는 샘들 나불는 게 요상들아 다시 요기 가는 쌍비 요말 야 나불는 거 사강도 마음껏은 토야래 되시라 제 세비들은 싸먹던 샘을 빼지 이 세와나지 때다 초와에 물어봐 싸고 대두 가리리 다 말을 찍찍한 때도 이 세계로 가. 서로디 죽지는 싸우는 마다 방법고 답을 근데 딱 봐면은 따뜻한 것도 좀 가서 한바 될라도 내 가서 봐 따뜻한 걸 빼. 충충 이런 거 좀 받치고 나는 벌도 빼. 마체도 이가 다들 빼자 주고 좀 받치고 와. 나니 모닥탕을 잡은 뭐 그런 거 라코르지 라코르 가지 알아 근데ズバ들이 그래 저도 셈ズバ데 뛰는데 소리 듣기는 맞다 들이 싸운 것도 아니 장례 셈데 지고 양도로 와 그래서 상을 듣기 니빠도 통들해 잠깐 떼게 말했지
So the outer universe is in the nature of impermanence. It has no substance, and also oneself is non-different. When one thinks about all the universes, also this world from which we can see the moon and other planets is impermanent and will come to complete destruction. The Buddha has said there is an infinite amount of other world systems. We can see some of it at night when we look in the sky and see the stars. Amongst them are many different planets. When we take the essence of one of those planets or worlds and a piece of earth, then they are same in nature. When one crumbles them, they just become nothingness, and they are in the nature of impermanence. They are conditioned phenomena, and all conditioned phenomena are in the nature of permanence. So when one contemplates in this way, one knows that at some point also our own world will become completely destroyed in the end. We just do not know exactly when this will happen. Some scientists say it will happen sooner, some say it will happen later. In any case, the Buddha has said the outer universe will come to complete destruction, for it is a compounded phenomena which is in the nature of impermanence. So when one contemplates in this way, thinking, all things are impermanent, are compounded phenomena, and will be destroyed, then we see our small fixations that we have to our country and the wars that we are engaging in. If we think all that will be destroyed, will be completely gone one day, what feeling will arise within one's mind? it is then as though one is awoken from a dream, the dream of ignorance. This feeling will arise within one. If one understands that everything and the whole world is in the nature of change, is not permanent, then one also understands that those things that one has a fixation to, like one's houses, one's countries and so forth, are considerably small compared to the whole universe, and still we have a strong fixation to them. For example, I myself have a strong fixation to my prayer wheel. One time we had a car accident, and I didn't even think about my own head, but I thought about may nothing happen to the prayer wheel. I could only think about the prayer wheel. So this is the little mental fixations that we have. But then we contemplate that the whole outer universe is impermanent and will come to a complete destruction at some point, and this will widen or open up our mind. And then there is the impermanence of the inner sentient beings, as the Buddha has taught. In actuality, even in this world, infinite amounts of beings, countless beings, are constantly dying without interruption. It is like a lawn mowing machine. When you mow the lawn, then constantly, every instant, somebody is sort of cut off. So at any moment and continuously, somebody is dying. Even in one country, every day thousands of people are constantly dying. It is just that we don't know about it. What we know about is about those that we love, our friends, and those that we are close to, our acquaintances, and we are afraid of their death. And when we hear about their dying, then a strong feeling arises within us because we have known that person. But in actuality, beings are dying constantly in every single moment, at all times. And moreover, in this world, there are countless causes that can cause our death. Therefore, the circumstances which lead to our death are uncertain. There are countless circumstances which lead to our untimely death, such as death through fire, or water, or robbers, or other adverse conditions, starving and so forth. there are many conditions which constantly can lead to death. And also in this way contemplate impermanence. Then there is the impermanence of the holy beings. Although their mind is the Buddha, their body has emanated, for example, in the realm of the humans. And also their bodies are not beyond cessation. Although they may have been great lamas, great accomplished masters, at some point they will also display impermanence and leave their bodies. Of course, realizing that the mind is beyond birth and cessation. This body composed of the 4 elements is just something that we have borrowed. Like it is said in the 37 practices, consciousness, the guest, will cast aside the guest house of the body. It is as though we have paid a rent for a guest house. If we had all power over it, then we would be able to keep it. But we cannot keep it. It is just like a guest house that we will have to leave. Some people may have read some about the preliminary practices in the jewel ornament of liberation or the words of my perfect teacher or other scriptures about the preliminary practices. And if not, you can also consult the 100,000 songs of Milarepa. We need to cultivate this thought of death and impermanence again and again, so that fear arises of this thought of dying. What is the benefit of doing that? One time a disciple asked a Gadampa Geshe if of all those Dharma practices, one were to be practiced, which one would be the most important one? And he replied, this most important one that you should always remember is the contemplation on death. In the beginning, depending on the contemplation of death, we enter the Dharma teachings. Then in the middle, depending on the contemplation of death, we engage in practice with great diligence. And in the end, depending on the cultivation of contemplation of death, we establish the causes for attaining Buddhahood. So therefore, the beginning, the middle, and the end all have arisen due to the contemplation of death. Therefore, when one contemplates in such a way, one would think this contemplation of death is truly precious. One needs to contemplate that again and again. When you get up in the morning, you necessarily must think about the difficulty of obtaining this precious human incarnation with all its freedoms and endowments. Especially if you don't want to get up, you could think, I shouldn't waste this opportunity. When I'm sleeping, I am just wasting more time. It is better to get up early in the morning, since I have obtained that precious human incarnation. And in the evening, since sleep and death are the same, you necessarily should contemplate death and impermanence, and think that in this moment, an infinite amount of sentient beings throughout the three spheres are dying in any moment. And once they have died, they follow along the karmas that they have accumulated. All sentient beings are afflicted by negative emotions. And once one has negative emotions, one lacks independence and thus has to experience suffering. And it is indeed very difficult to free oneself of these afflictive emotions. That should arouse bodhicitta in one's mind. Then recite a refuge prayer and a dedication prayer each and every day. So each and every day you must remind yourself of the precious human incarnation in the morning and death and impermanence in the evening.
대단히 좀 타고 매력 가면이 파츠 저때 랩고 요리 저때 같은 연구 요리 되나 아래 대단히 말하는 버렸네 마고 쏘고 대다 때나 니까지 가야 제이고죠 소소 쫙쫙 보자 뭐라 니 맞잖아 당한 저때 하면 랩송 당한 저때 해도 대다 같이 매도를 봐 게임을 올해 대단한 때들이 처음부터 양강양도 긴 거랬지.
Also the causes which will cause our death are uncertain. Some die early in the wombs of their mothers. Some die just as they are born. Some die just after they are born. It is uncertain when we are going to die. If such things happen, then it is due to the karma that we have accumulated in previous lifetimes. If in previous lifetimes we have killed and abused others, then in this lifetime we will experience more frequent illness, shorter lifespan, inharmonious relationships with companions. All the suffering arises from these actions. If one has not engaged in those actions, one will experience fewer illness and longer lifespan. For example, if one has not engaged in the action of sexual misconduct in previous lifetimes, one will have a good body, physical condition. One's lifespan will be longer, maybe 70, 80 years, some even get to 100 years. These are all results of positive actions accumulated in previous lifetimes. For example, talking about lifespan, in Tibet, if one gets to 50 years, one already is considered to be aged. Here, the physical conditions are a little bit better, and then maybe as one gets 60, 70, one begins to age. But basically, when the body begins not to function very well, for example, in my own case, when I reached the age of 50, I had great physical difficulty with my knees and so forth. When those signs happen, then we can take that to be a sign of death. Milarepa has taught about that extensively in his songs. When we find white hair and wrinkles on our skin, we can take them all to be signs of our own death, like a flower withering away. We should remember death and impermanence again and again.
다 로 요보 답지는 나 요보에서 대야로 말이 올해 라로 총사 마고 쳐요. 대삼이죠. 다다 소화는 말로 총이지. 대는 나 마셔가지고 넘어고 또나 가지시 하고 말이지. 상로당 전에지네. 아기 잡고 sepsi 상로당 레지드에는 정체. 올해 개바 답지는 다 무슨 나 저때 차례지. 니마 religion 때문에 말 원래 루이다 good road 니마 religion 관계 거리 습기에 배봐요 말이에요. 셀 동에 본데 막 저게 저게 뭐 하고는 딱 좋아라 너의 매로 탑 저거 가리는 게 저게 좀 시계를 거기 동에 다시 한번 더 빼고 다음에 좀 가지고 그래도 계좌에 올라 올해가 쉬어보고 이제는 마음이 가는 그지 이렇게 계좌에 올라 님보요 말 시간이 낭비가 탑대로 같이 잡고 가고 오지 그래서 사제 탑대로 주지 보고 쏘는 시간이 낭비가 탑 가이고 이제 땅에 다리에 나래 이제 뭐지 싸와 가을 때는 거죠 다 레좀 마음 무슨 거 이제 이제 상지바데 너무 빨리요 너무 빨리 강이 좀 나디리 좀 나디리 이걸 가리피게 돼. 이피를 놓고 조금만 이피에서 좀 땅에 이피 가리서 못 온 거지나. 어떻게나 아마요. 아주 아마 줄 피다 손에지. 아마 피다도 강에 잡고 죽겠는데 왜 다다 진짜면도 대티월에 저 토끼는 초를 패고 아마지 강에 가지 잡는 초라는 더더 보고 강에 가지 잡는 강에 가리도 아메 제 나이 차가고 잡으래 되는 오늘이 아마디가 가는 자료리 있었더니 다다 아마디 가와요와 아마디 동네 가루요 다들 아마는 가르치고 그랬습니다. 다 말로 지내도 소왔다 버리지 아마디는 말로 지내도 다 제가 대주 제거요. 무슨 들이 톱고래. 제가 미 봐라 제가 제톱고요. 다 사실 쇼가를 나중에 제가 공요래. 그래. 내가 때는 저도 제라고요. 주풍 지제적이 동거 자와 상속성은 동지 사지 동지들 같은 말이 드리사고도 쇼안제 성을 봐도나 단지에 봐 제가 요가 다 뒤탑제 거래지.
Many young people think I am young and maybe don't have to die soon, but still that is also not certain. Many young people die, and you can think some actually die that are much younger than myself. Then one would contemplate. I don't know when the time has come when I will have to die. So then one should set out and contemplate refuge, bodhicitta, contemplate the workings of karma, cause and effect. Then the older people could actually think at all times, my time of dying has already arrived. At each time I could die. Many people suffer of the thought of death. They think, I am suffering so much, I will have to die. They cry out when they have to go to hospital. But that has no essence. There is no benefit in doing that. One needs to seek a method that liberates from that suffering. And what is the method that liberates from that suffering? The fear of death. What is the roots of fear? This is elaborated in the teachings of karma, cause and effect. The root lies in our afflictive emotions and originally springs from our self-fixation. And what is the antidote against that self-fixation? It is giving rise to the altruistic mind. Thus it is said, the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So when one asks you, do you have a mother? Then the other person will say, yes, I do. So has your mother benefited you? One doesn't really remember, but then one thinks about the hardships that oneself is engaging in for one's children, and then one thinks, my mother has cared for me just in this way. And my mother has engaged in so many difficulties and hardships. It is really true. What can I do to benefit my mother? What can I do to alleviate her suffering? Then one could practice Chenrezig and recite Chenrezig's mantra. Then when one thinks in such a way, love has arisen within one's mind. And then when one dies, it is this love that one will take with one instead of self-clinging. This is something that I always say. The root of the 84,000 aggregates of Dharma teachings lies in the altruistic mind, which is the method to dispel our self-clinging.
이제 누가 그걸 잡게 보다를 제더니 생각이 제고래.
And so, as a preparation for a time when death then really comes, we should habituate ourselves to the contemplations on karma, cause and effect, and bodhicitta, or other methods such as the visualization of the deity in the generation stage practice, or like we said yesterday, the torch that leads us through the next lifetime is the realization of the clear light luminosity of our mind. Through practices such as Mahamudra or Dzogchen, by which we realize the nature of our mind. Then, when the time of death actually has come, it is the twofold bodhicitta that will protect us. First, it is the conventional bodhicitta of love and compassion which will protect us. And secondly, it is the realization of mind's nature. It is clear light luminosity that will protect us. Therefore, at this point, we need to apply great effort in our practice. First, depending on conventional bodhicitta, which is love and compassion, we defeat afflictive emotions such as anger or jealousy. And secondly, through maintaining mindful awareness, we increase our awareness and we recognize concepts and afflictive emotions upon arising with mindful awareness, and in this way we increase our awareness. We will be able to liberate those concepts and afflictive emotions arising and will not be bound by them. So at this point we need to apply many methods, and we ultimately also need to encourage others to engage in like practice.
대두를 갖고 초학을 갖고 사반 수제대 다다는 소리 호와를 갖고 제베 도다 인시 자세라는 소원이 여행도 잡히 도제라서 제가 지고 요나야 제와 단지 장제를 제와는 제가 내고 변나 어래 뭐 매번 제와는 요거 강의는 사지 동진들라 부모를 지지지고 도지 변나 부모를 지지지고 부모들을 뭐지 지나와나도 다들 부모 요원을 맞아 있어라. 이 부모를 지지 되게 그랬더니 강수가래 되나. 사실 깔아대나. 이제 감들들이 집어도 그다음에 시 다들이 저 안만 토어지도 뒤에서 강대가 쫓아보면서 사실 시험감이 여기 자꾸 좋아서 맞아서 예수가 쫓아보면서 그들이 사실 저기라 하시는 데라 사실 가짜요 그래라 빼지다 다다는 속에 원래 몇번에 뻗어와들 강아 지와요 봐대 대다वर 만나 과다냐고 세비도 파마만 되고 깨끗매 자치 지와 치고 강아 지와요 지와 깜이잖아 들이 hin지랑 친 바지 대요 말이 hin지 쳐보지 몇번에 배신지대 hin지 짱마 차대요 대 많이 받다는 저기 감단이 차대오나 저기 감단을 한 거지 hin지랑 친 바지 다도 좀 제가 니지 되라서 차대나 들이 세대 대는 결대리 되게 좋고요 말이 라면 콜로 좋나 김바이에 정탈이 자세라는 소 고통 고에 랑랑 좋고 말이 파마 니지 담신데 저게 나 가져 특별히 변나 대 마지막에 보고는 셔리가 보고도 되잖아 또 세대 보고들이 또 강노노를 피쪽쪽 말와 보고지요나 저들이 셔도를 보고도 되거든 와 다 나시라도 보고도 나도 상거와 담을 빠나 대지 세대 보고도 저들어 세대 보고들이 차시들 이거 보고들은 누구래마도 강력 필요 말이 저 타바토 비고 요 말와 샘트가로 보고를 자차를 와 대 많이 바꿔야 다들 몇번 매번 생기게 돼 참아 생긴 삼실 피고 우선 몇번 매번 생기게 되나 집감들이 라면 따와 진짜 때문에 예담들 라진서 어레 그리 때문에 어레 생기 담지 삼바다 문제라서 봐 나를 탑이 뒤에 좋고 요래 데르서들이 마차바 마이바다리 거기 저세라는 소가 너무 차지매 봐 체지 다 줘봐 오, 나 가시 싫어. 나 가시 싫어. 파마, 잡지, 열지, 잠깐 노래라서 뭐 강연 팀을 거치. 단지는 속에 특히 그게 뭐래. 여러 도권 잡지. 이거 매번 도권 노래라. 이거 매. 제마서 나 리더가 가는 이거 매서 따따라 세타지. 지금 오, 대마 쇼들 밤도 단체에 대해도 보여요. 뭐래. 저때 무슨 나쁠 까라. 근데 당고 위주 사이가 철탐서. 뒤감이더니 루제 사이카도 철탐서. 근데 스타일을 그쪽 매봐. 쇼 매봐. 야랑부터 당도 뭐가 문화를 봐서 오늘 사야지부터 당장 제 또 phân 동을 나눠서 이성으로 다됐잖아. 나한테는 더 하고 와. 내가 하고 와. 세당 당장 작도 필요고 와. 위주 사이칸 다다니 철탐서 와. 학송아. 대체대래. 대체대래샤. 지금부터 이게 관에 차로 오면이지. 자세라는 게 생각도 하만 자신이라로 가장 맞춰거든.
So at the time when we will have to die, we need to have cultivated love and compassion. There is no samsaric friends or families which can provide us with any protection. In fact, if our love is defiled by self-clinging, it will only cause harm and no benefit. The love that we need to cultivate is the love free from the referential point. In the sutra requested by the jewel bedecked disciple of the Buddha has said that all the worldly companions, friends and relatives, and even powerful worldly gods cannot provide you protection when you die. It is only the three jewels which will provide you with protection. It is therefore the non-referential love that we need to cultivate. That is that first we take the love that we feel for somebody, and then we expand this love until it reaches all sentient beings through contemplating that all sentient beings, vast like the sky, have been my parents in one or the other lifetime. In this way one expands one's love, and then great compassion arises. This great non-referential, non-concept bound compassion arises, then this is pure compassion. On the other hand, in an ordinary sense, if we feel compassion for our friends and relatives, that this is compassion defiled by self-fixation, and this type of compassion will not protect our mind. As it is said in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, all those worldly gods and relatives cannot provide us any protection. For example, in an ordinary sense, when one has a child and this child were to die, then one would only think about one's own child and think one would have lost one's child. One has a strong attachment to the child, and this in fact is not beneficial but very harmful for the child, because there is no aspiration to gain liberation. Non-conceptual or boundless compassion means to want to benefit all sentient beings. Ideally, one would recall those sentient beings from within the state of the view. Or if one cannot do that, then one can remember the hidden deity. Or one can contemplate love and compassion directed towards all sentient beings. And therefore in the 37 Bodhisattva practices it says, long associated companions will part from each other, wealth and possessions obtained with effort will be left behind. In the end, when we have to die, then our parents, all our possessions, our money that we have acquired will not seek any protection. They have no essence whatsoever. When the time of dying has come, then we will have to go. In the beginning, the earth element dissolves into the water element. Then one's body cannot move anymore. One cannot sit up. One cannot get up easily. like Milarepa has said, when you first you sit down like a sack that has been cut through. Secondly, then the way, to give two examples, the way is you get up is like you say, like I'm pulling on a stake. Rinpoche says I am the best example for that. If you look at me, already the earth element is beginning to dissolve into the water element. Those are all signs of death. Therefore, take the 37 practices to heart and don't cultivate a strong craving for long associated companions. So first the earth element dissolves into the water element. Then the water element dissolves into the fire element. When that happens, then our bodily fluids begin to dry out, such as our saliva and our nose, our eyes. Everything becomes dried out. This is the next sign of death. Then after that, the fire element dissolves into the wind element. A sign of that happening is that one's breath will become shorter, like many Tibetan people in Tibet experience. That is a sign of being very close to death. When the wind element dissolves into the consciousness, then we really die. then our legs and hands become stiff and we lose all our radiance. Then the inner dissolution begins, the inner appearances of death begin. The white appearance, the red and the black appearance. The white appearance is when the semen of our father is descending down. The red appearance is when the blood drop of our mother is descending up. When we have the white appearance, then the concepts of anger come to a cessation. During the red appearance, the concepts of attachment come to a cessation. And after that, as we move into the black appearance, we fall unconscious. It is just like the sleep state. When one is an experienced practitioner, one understands this process of dissolution. Also, when we fall asleep, we first experience the white experience or appearance. That is when the clear light luminosity of the mind appears to us. Then the red appearance, when all the concepts of attachment cease, and then we come to the black appearance, which would be similar to falling asleep, and then the dream state comes to a cessation. So first, as we fall asleep, we have the white appearance, then we have the red appearance, and when we come to the black appearance, the dream comes to an end and we fall into an unconscious state. If one practices, for example, when we practice the 6 yogas of Naropa in the dream yoga, it is exactly that we are training in this recognition of the dissolution stage. Now we can practice in small, like with small examples. Later, when we die, it is a very gross dissolution. If one trains in such a way, then there will be no fear of that. So one of the practices of the 6 yogas of Naropa is the dream yoga practice, where one trains in the following way. One first maintains mindful awareness throughout one's day. One recognizes, one is aware of all the concepts, afflictive emotions and delusions, confusions arising throughout the day. And through this recognition, they will be rendered powerless. Then one maintains this mindful awareness as one goes over to the dream state. Then one attains the ability to apprehend the dream state. If one is able to apprehend the dream state, then later on, after one has died, one will be able to recognize this state also in the Bardo after one has died. That is then the state where all our old karmas and propensities will be activated, although our body has come to a cessation and we experience the same types of suffering impelled by afflictive emotions. But if in the Bardo state one recognizes those appearances, then immediately one will find liberation. Then it is like waking up from a dream. So in the 6 yogas of Naropa, one trains in the dream yoga, one also trains in the Bardo, and one another practice is the practice of the illusory body.
Tili tata kalam balam naram desukami shetang tokwa 수저 속선 깔라니까 도차도 와지게 시행이 만나니까 또먹도 와 되지 나람처럼 다 제발해라 가면 지금 가도 그래 가서나 대가서는 가면 따뜻한 이 토부에 살았지 이 토부에 살았잖아 제발 매번 가면 나도 제기들 랩토 그래 제기 좋지 보나 내 랩토는 되게 반도 내했어 그래 제발 내가 차 토부에 오면 지금 항상 되니 다다 사자적으로 쪽파집을 따와보니 지금왕리 제밤이가 잡아서 독보에서 듣지 말이 저리 나도 담보 죽어서 상지로 그래 거기다 가야 다다랑 즉 상지는 발표를 드리 말해야지 나도 담보니 파지요 워낙 나도 담보니 상지에서 나도 담보 죽어서 상지 저리 여기서 마음 못하지 나 담배 제발 매바 차로 따뜻한 지 독박이 전이 세더니 라방 세도 그 말이들이 깡바요 락바요들이 락방팔들이 맨이 세부터 양자판이 곡들이 저기 그래 양이 저기들이 딱 세서는 락방 세대서 세대를 그래 락방 세요 그래 그니 지라보다 양의 양들이 이 도고 차도는 담배들이 또 담배 야만 세판이 그래 양이 요리면 뭐 참아지 딱딱 들이 양이 요금만 담치나 가디 양나 들이지 또 담치 파스는 다음에는 또 와지 말라 때문에 양이 깜빡이 올라와요 또 막 탈라요 그래서 무슨 엄만 예습하는 롱도 보자 니도 더 보러 가 보통 더 니도 더 오는 얘기들 다가로서
예
보통 더 니도 더 보러 이거 바라지 거든 타는 역시가 안 먹었다 이제 밤에는 그리 오르라 제발로 매대 진짜다 제발요나 따지도 바로 담보는 상기에 이거래 제발에는 따지니 말바로와 다시 차례지 다시 해야 돼 다고 대시들이 다시 하면 나타서 손다
So there are the three appearances, the white, red and black appearances. In the first one, the 33 concepts of anger come to a cessation. In the second one, the 42 concepts of attachment come to a cessation. And in the third, the 7 concepts of ignorance come to a cessation. Then one falls unconscious and all concepts have come to a complete cessation. That is the time where one then can recognize the clear light of deep sleep. When one has trained in this practice, one will not fall unconscious, but conscious mindful awareness will be maintained during that time. Then also, as one is dying and goes on to the Bardo state, one will not fall unconscious, but maintain a mindful awareness. Then immediately one would place oneself inside the view of Mahamudra or Dzogchen without losing mindful awareness. Then it is possible to attain enlightenment in the first Bardo, gaining enlightenment into the Dharmakaya. It is not as though one says, I will attain enlightenment in this life and then I will fly up in the sky. One can then gain enlightenment through one's practice in the process of dying, as one realizes clear light, the nature of one's mind, and thus gains enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. If one has not meditated and has not habituated this state, then one will just fall unconscious, like falling into a deep sleep. For example, ordinarily, when we have fallen into this unconscious state and then we wake up, then very slowly we stretch our legs and we stretch our legs, and then we think maybe I sleep another round, then we sleep again. But a practitioner would wake up in that instant, the mind would be very sharp and very clear and would get up immediately. So that is the difference. And also during the time that one is sleeping, if one is not a practitioner, then one would toss back and forward and move like all the sheets and everything back and forward. But if one is maintaining mindful awareness, one would not do such. Rinpoche then just remembered when he was a young child, he said, due to lack of mindfulness, I was tossing back and forward in my bed, and then in the end I fell down on the ground. This shows that there was no mindfulness. So if one in any case maintains mindful awareness, then one can gain enlightenment into the first Bardo in the Dharmakaya. And if not, then one is under this way of ignorance and one has died. Of course, apart from some very high practitioners, it is very difficult to apprehend and recognize the clear light luminosity of the deep sleep. But there is a special instruction. If you practice the Om Ahom Vajra recitation as you go to sleep, you will have to some extent the ability maybe to apprehend the dream state. Then, although you fall into a deep sleep state, immediately as you wake up, clarify your mind and immediately become like sharpen your mind and get up immediately with a clear mind. Then one can attain enlightenment in the Dharmakaya after one's death. This instruction was given by Khenpo Munso Rinpoche, and this is something that is easy to accomplish. So before you go to sleep, don't wear too thick of clothes, don't eat too much food, and as you are falling asleep and then waking up, immediately recognize and immediately regain mindful awareness. Anyone who applies great effort in that can accomplish this. If this is accomplished, then there is no need to go into the Bardo state. One may attain enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. So immediately get up and regain mental clarity. Some other people have a very difficult time getting up in the morning, and they just cannot immediately gain this clarity of mind. But it is of great benefit if we can train in this practice of, as we are awakening, immediately to gain this clarity of mind. That is because the nature of our mind is endowed with Buddha nature. And if we are free from all fixation, then that itself is the Buddha. Due to the qualities of this Buddha nature, we can bring to a complete cessation our afflictive emotions. Through recognizing them upon arising, we can liberate them. This is the unmistaken speech of the Buddha. Bardo, Ambo, Shukoka, Posa, te sono tutti vedi? Te ti trovo tap. Ni. Di tampote tablo bagni là. Tampote ni topura sarsenna. Te parto tamoni te tomme ba forza priore. Te passi in toppa sar mazina yang. Te pai 많이 공들이 오마호도기 대바다 사당 하라스바 제가 탑지했더니 대지나 드니 탑점을 드네 드니 제도 그거를 빼나 라나 드니 저도 생각대로 진실이 강이 샀다가 남당 진실이 남도 이제 발마고 어떻게 보고요 니발라더니 예담 사 퇴처를 양적해요래. 그래서 마다 라마다 사바다 흥지라 소파. 제라 소파 제가 도파. 퇴처는 되게요래. 라빠더니 타타 니까지 사바다 흥지 뭐 보고나 치인하더니 동해진지 생기나 Sambada Hinjese, Pena Simki, Sofia, Nepa, Della Sopata, Vale, Etate, Pindo Pata, Sam Hinji, Sambada Hinji, Malamina, Taya, Fite, so, l'anno passato, Rinpoche, shoye chiesom. Ina hakosom, ina yang chiesom. Ina hakosom, ina yang mishenchik, Rinpoche toche deva omahomang sum sam. Ni kurang karare hakosom dus telatis tersi dia renang.
Telatis mo.
Ronti samala mo.
Dorji deva mas, nga Romani ba tamashe de. Dorji deva jiba de tata. 我说上海个王学呢，你上海个当车呀，王个钱的，哪个山上哪的，就是找你这样没个听过的，这地方的怪当车，这里哪里哪地方运气没吧，这哪里地方差没吧，运气没吧，我来说，这送个当车，这钱准备起来的，这马英把早晚用完没吧。 这么这里，那东国做节的，他东宋做节，东出做节，多节生的上海当成，而且上海当成什么样的，这人都有的。这咋靠我用把的这，这了当晚了，这个往往红的， om지 산지상도 꼬는 거 아주 쏜는 거 홍도 톡 쏘는 거는 여러 좀 들더니 산지 탐지 고송 톡 참고로 해. 제들이 깔고서 또랑 탐지 거네. 어래 아보쇼 그래서 이 때와는 이게 때와는 매 루메로 매 지금 삼모당나 대 이제 계속 보고 공부하래 때는 매대 대 삼모당더니 꼭 아제도 온데지 아 이제 롱지 보고는 롱지 때는 매지 늘 때는 매지 롱지 탐송도 아 때는 다다래 홍지 색공데 이긴 러사다 보면에 옹종 없지 나는 좀 온 내봐 아 용화 홍 설용화 홍선지 그렇게 tun지 쪽으로 될 tun용종 되나 아까마치 까마 제가 담아 온자 뭐다 아 지대와 좀 홍지 색감데 롱루 정보래 대화 정보 가면 오롱 샤지가 롱지 야데 같이 오롱이 카담 행지는 카담 그래 샤람처럼 카담 그때는 막 애들 롱도 빠지면서 그때 저도 세가서는 양나더니 된 도착이 되네 그럼 잠시를 내가 가르치는 홍지 그때 제 주제로 공종을 라든 공항으로 근데 내가 제내한다 갈아사나한다 개자시한다 센터들이 공항도 많이 봐 저기 차트에 좀 막 답답이 되거든요 말랑머리 공항도 개인으로 와 로 같이 공부를 우리가 보면 나와 있어서 그 컴퓨터에 돈을 로직 이상 컴퓨터에 이마 공항 제약을 하고 그러라 하고 소나 뭐야 막고는 죄아 내가 몰라면 아니 시선한테 기타도 그러라
So we have been introduced on how we are liberated after our death into the Dharmakaya. There are generally 3 stages of liberation. First, we need to apprehend, if one apprehends the deep sleep state, then without any doubt one will find enlightenment in the first Bardo, in the Dharmakaya. If one is not able to apprehend the deep sleep state, then one can train through the Vajra recitation of Om Ahum or the visualization of the deities and their mantra recitation and gain awareness through these practices. So there are those methods. Ideally, one recognizes the innate nature of mind. One merges one's mindful awareness with any concepts that arise, and one doesn't let other concepts intervene one's mindful awareness. That is in the ideal case. And secondly, one can meditate on the hidden deity. And thirdly, one thinks about one's Lama, one contemplates love and compassion and arouses other virtuous concepts. Especially, for example, if one habituates love and compassion, then at night when one is sleeping and one has a dream of sentient beings such as animals or ill people suffering, then when the wish arises to benefit them with a loving and compassionate mind, then this is the best sign of having habituated love and compassion. And after that, I said Rinpoche that there was a request to further explain the Vajra recitation of Om Ahum, and Rinpoche said, to most of my older senior students, I have already instructed the Vajra recitation of Om Ahum. And generally, in the secret mantra, when one receives an empowerment, one also receives a samaya. The physical samaya is to not let one's mind be separated from the clear appearance, the clear visualization of the deity, to not forget the visualization of the deity. The verbal samaya would be to recite the mantra continuously, and the mental samaya would be to never let one's mindful awareness become distracted. So these are called the three vajras, and it is indeed difficult to accomplish those three vajras. Therefore, there is a special instruction, the Om Ahum Vajra recitation. Om signifies the essence of the Buddha's body. Ah represents the essence of the Buddha's speech, and Hum represents the essence of the Buddha's mind. In this way, the three Buddha Kayas or embodiments are contained within the Om Ahum. And this is a practice that we can do throughout all our activities throughout the day. One should begin a formal morning session, and for that one visualizes that at one's navel is a flame like a battle lamp. This was taught by Lord Jigten Sungen. As one breathes in, one thinks Om. With Ah, one holds the breath at the navel, and this breath, this energy melts into the fire at the navel chakra. Then with Hum, you breathe out. This is nothing that should be actually said, but it is the air that is in the nature of Om Ahum. So for example, one round of Om Ahum would maybe take you half a minute. You breathe in, for a few moments you retain the air with Ah, and then you breathe out with Hum. When you retain the air, retain it gently, and also pull some of the lower wind energies up and contract your anus slightly. Practice in a session for about half an hour. And then after you complete your session, also during all your daily activities, your work and so forth, you can always practice the breathing of Om Ahum continuously, whether you are working or eating or speaking to somebody. If you would never forget the Om Ahum recitation, then that would encompass the speech samaya. If one trains well, then gradually or eventually one will be able to recall the Om Ahum even during one's dream state. Of course, one has to train for some time, maybe for a year. If one possesses great diligence, then maybe it will be possible after 2 or 3 months. Ordinarily, it may take a year, but eventually it will become second nature.
아니 되었더니 다 Bardo tambuni sempre nello scipate sempre nello scina tata sakki dokje ni tong shili ta cheke pene sempre nello rangzarje ole diga kapar moshi to de sakyo diga de thna ni diga ni namdo dang yumo ba gang channa pena 진실이 속체 보구나. 나도 당연히 먹어서 또 내가 차네 배는. 진실이 매다 그러나 나 보대. 부생다 그래 상음다 넘넘요가. 오 매도 넘들잖아. 락당 매도 치료로 되되나니. 차로 요래. 그랬다 무슨 진실이 더 바탕 치게. 다음 진실이 싸워 모시기로 말해. 진실 가려면 참 진실 싸워 모시这里一句 마제를 받아 다른 하정 지와시고 대바시고 세분대로 라마 대지나 그걸 뒤신 예단도 라지나 그걸 다 오홍지나 그걸 가르드나 진실의 매직이나 대시 코는 뭐도 고야 요 말이 빼나 싹동 나갔다고래 대시 몸이 지게 고 나갔다고는 고야 요 말이 제때는 대시 전되는 것도 라마는 맥에 통이고 라마 대시게 들어오게 왜 라마 튕게 들어오게 대면은 여담 때 왔지 뭐 여담은 꺼내놨다 대인되나 대기 오지 대피지 대시 코랑 차대요 대시 코랑 것들이 라마들 여담 강기나 라마들 기업사 왔다면 대시가 대시가 뒤터고래 대주 대시도 못 찍고 하지 라고도 좀 힘 삭힌 게 아니라 라마 뒤바 예미지 무슨 땀도 도박하는 아주 시에기로 또 답이 도박 말고는 세고서 전에 답이 도박 교사는 다들 상기에서 가려야 돼. 사실 대시래. 대시 가려야 되면 니 답이 도박 쉬워지. 니몇 동물하지. 다른 말로 시당하나. 대시 왜 답이 도박 쉬워? 왜 말은 도박하지 않는 말이야. 시당 때는 그 말이야. 왜 타도 치는 그 말이야. 왜 타도 치는 거 쉽게 받대래. 이게 상계 때래. 좀잘 대시 코랑게 다다 영어보다 나도 좀 탑선지 이 기소를 대시 코랑 띄고 자 대시 코랑은 내로 그쪽 때나 근데 대시 코랑 서 동나 파다가 좀 가사 비면 통고요 때 통화들이 대충 맞지는 시티를 근데 그거요 내 당국가를 대시 공원 통을 대충 지를 대시 공원 마시는 대시 시티를 말해 대신 통고 말해 뒤치 발로나 제발은 많이 하고서 봤음도 가서 라마 되죠 여담 되죠 대패 싸우는 게 기청고
So in the first Bardo state, when we recognize the nature of our mind, for those who can recognize the nature of the mind, those practitioners who are able to sustain the view of Mahamudra or Dzogchen, and those who are able to abide within self-cognizing intrinsic awareness, who are able to remain within that state, whatever concepts or afflictive emotions appear to them, if their mindful awareness is strong, then those concepts and afflictive emotions will be rendered powerless. Mindful awareness is like fire, and the afflictive emotions and concepts are like the fuel or oil that is poured into the fire. When you pour that oil into the fire, that makes the fire even greater, even more powerful. If, on the other hand, one does not recognize one's own awareness, mindful awareness, and many doubts may arise in one's mind, and one may question, what is this mindful awareness? Until one has gained conviction in one's mindful awareness, confidence and recognition, one needs to apply methods to come to that state of recognition, such as thinking about one's lama that one has strong love and devotion for example, or one's Yidam deity that one feels very close to, or one can also rely upon the practice of the Om Ahum breathing. If one then recognizes mindful awareness, then there is nothing that is to be seen. It is a union of clarity and emptiness that abides like the expanse of space. So in order to apprehend one's own mindful awareness, one can think about, recall the Guru, think with strong love about the Yidam deity, let its form appear to one's mind. So at any time when one does that, then mindful awareness arises in that moment. That is the essence of mindful awareness. When one, in the Mahamudra or Dzogchen practices, it is said that the Lama and one's awareness, one's mindfulness are inseparable. Therefore, it is of great benefit to recall the Lama and the Lama's awareness. When we have received the refuge vow, before we have received the refuge vow, we go for refuge in the 3 outer jewels. And after we have received the refuge vow, what is the inner jewel? The inner Buddha is our mindful awareness. After I have then received the refuge vow, I would think, oh, I have received the refuge vow, I cannot get angry. It is not appropriate to begin quarreling and fighting. I must not get angry or jealous because I have received the refuge vow. That is the real Buddha. That awareness is the real Buddha. And if one maintains this awareness, then gradually it will become stable and firm. Then when one gains insight, when one directly looks at this mindful awareness, at the nature of this mindful awareness, one will see this a clarity, a union of clarity and emptiness, and it cannot be seen. It is beyond expression, beyond description, and beyond conception. At that point one has no doubts in one's mind and confidence has arisen, and then one is able to remain within that state. But for beginning practitioners, there are many doubts due to non-recognition of the nature of mindful awareness, not having confidence and belief in it. It is nothing that can be seen. It is therefore a good method to recall the Lama, for example, or one's Yidam deity.
So, top job, you are about the Sanjay, or Dane to the Sanchok to go, Matop, Sanchok to go and change a part, or Dane controls on the Sanchok sent Dutchess. Didn't only top down to Sanjay, now Sanjay can't eat Jacob. But you sometimes not the half. Tata to down the one to Tishi, Tata Tishi, Tishi the Kari Japato. Tishi the Sanjay, Tata and think I'm the young boy, Mato the Chepe. Oh, Tata consistent. Oh, you mobile man is Sanjay about something to Cassia here. Oh, Tama, you mobile. You know what the problem is Sanjay about Tommy Manga, Tommy Lapio, half of you to also kill Lapio. Now you know what does not Sanjay Wahako, you say, Tara tapped it. That was to pay a couple of the Yaya. Tara tapped the big couple of it. Don't mention a couple of you, Mary. Sanjay Jean is such a mess only. Got it. So similar to the same with similar dinner. The new mobile rain, the Shetang, the Giver, the Giver, the Shooking Shiba. They maybe took the Roma or Medina. Only they only the Shiba take it to do. Shiba does Sanjay, yeah. The Shiba tells the Shetang Chebo, Shetang, the jewelry, Shetang Koran jewelry, yes, on Bergo. Or on the tree, the Ransom, Gayang, Maji, Shetang, Yashuna. Oh. Karma Joma in a Dermara, young lad over it, young Jerry, young lad, the lad of this, take the last one, she don't go by, but any she or a new one. Tumley Nansen, a couple Marie, get it in it, go for the doctor, so many. Bella, Hova did our Namdores. Ole, Hova Chang me by an Bella, a relative. The same about you. Then the Dajik Kidney, check the Dajik Hopper is. Dajik Hopper is. Then I not get me to the Tomba of half of the Sana. Oh, not I knew people getting it on. How about the Tomba in the half of it? How about the church in the Notorious? Not get me to half of it. They don't just in Yamtana, many half of it. Oh, then Yamta lead took the dignity. Yamta leave it up. Gangema Bojaka. Little Jansi something you pick out the top of the guitar, little Nakar and go to Puyori, Conto Pay, little Kachaja to Puyori, Chok down to Puyori, Polija to Puyori, Kadi Kangija, Poli, Poli, Magua, 양보를 다 장미로와 대답이 내가 가래래 대게다 치고들이 라버는데 볼이 잡히 짜치고래스 배샤방보도 tos잖아 다 산이 띠띠가 요 말한대요 어때는 세면 따지도 깽에 요 말도 딱히 나또 누구가 딱 문제는 다 산이 제시니 상상니 고와라 사제 심지니 상상 미래를 내다 사제를 잡대 뒤치를 잡고 이거 대주 뒤치 되려면 이쪽도 대상지에 좀 변화 뒤치 코랑 사제면은 어래 들리더니 초박이 좀 채로 와 어래 들리자고 따라 들리라고 내라고래서 무슨 양소나 쭈르지 갖다 쭈르기나 다 때리지 뒤치들 공부를 이거는 보고 뭐 시성한테 내라고 뭐 실래 내라고 공부 이거는 뭐라
The ultimate and infallible source of refuge is the Buddha, in whom we take refuge from this day onwards until we attain the heart of enlightenment, when we take refuge in the three jewels. From within the three jewels, the ultimate source of refuge is the Buddha. And how does we receive protection from the Buddha? When we come to the juncture of birth and or of life and death, then it is our mindful awareness which provides protection. And how does that happen? This is something that we can experience at all times. Many people may think, they say, well, if I have rid myself of all the afflictive emotions, then one is a Buddha. But it is very difficult to apply the method to bring that about. Actually, it is not that difficult. As the Buddha has said, the method is not to be sought elsewhere. Mind has to look at mind itself. The one that recognizes, that awareness that recognizes, oh, this is afflictive emotion arising, this is anger, this is a virtuous thought, this is an unvirtuous thought. The one who knows all this, that is the Buddha. For example, if strong anger arises, then immediately when one thinks, oh, this is wrong, strong anger has arisen, then this itself is the Buddha. It is mindful awareness holding its own seat. Then if mindful awareness holds its own seat and one just rests in mind's natural state, not even in 15 minutes the anger will disappear, and it may come back again, and again it will disappear. And in this way one is training again and again. If one has recognized one concept of anger, for example, to be empty in self-nature, then one has recognized all concepts to be empty in self-nature. In this sense, the method actually is not that difficult. Lord Nagarjuna has said the root of samsara actually lies within conceptuality. Although samsara is infinite, it has one single root. It is made by our own concepts. For example, on the mountain, if there's many different grasses and bushes, if one realizes the nature of one single grass, one has realized the nature of all of them, the little pieces of like little grass and bushes. And if one has recognized one concept to be empty of self-nature, then one has realized that all the 84,000 different afflictive emotions and concepts in samsara are empty in self-nature. Samsara's nature is emptiness. And this is something that you can experience as you engage in practice. One needs to train and engage in practice. For example, many people train their bodies and they do all sorts of exercise, like playing like a basketball, some ball game, and they work very hard and they endure many hardships, and for which result? Maybe to get famous or to get a lot of money, but in the long run there will be not much result. So if you look at your mind and you recognize one single concept, then you have recognized the nature of all other concepts. Then when you come to the juncture of being alive and death, then it is this mindful awareness which will provide protection. Mindful awareness is the Buddha. It is the one who interrupts the stream of confusion. And this is something that anybody can practice and experience. One only needs to apply diligence, perseverance in one's meditation practice. The recognition is considerably easy. The habituation of this state only takes a longer time.
Three Bardo Tamoni Sangina, oh, Bardo Chukan Sangina, Namkala Namka Tabana, Kangamia Chakari, Chakayo Mari, Ore. Ah, the Chupi Jasa Sentuna, Chupi Jasa Sentuna, Teva Teleton, Chimbal Teva Latin, Loco the Trucker Rangi, in the matter of the church. Chang me Panjori, Chang me ba. Rangi, the Bepa the Toval Matipa, Yogi Tata, Check Chokare, the Check Chokamari, and therein the Mare, Yomari, Chokoshi, Sula San Chokes and some hinges, San Chokes and Julia, tell San Chokes and Chokosi, Kerry or there's in a better maybe want to buy your head. Yeah, I took a son, Jim Matabra Carrier. I'm going to check neat Semata. Neat Semata. Ah, you come from Tanga Mother Tanga, give your check or your ass, or give it up. Now go, but you tell him, give it up, what check your oh, not you come from Hosa. You got the dark carrier. Ah, you don't know, Sunny Shokan. Don't me, my shadow, then my carriage. Yeah, not I shut down, so you say, I'm really. They didn't know not all the jets and didn't drop it. Can't drop you. Drop the thing you were taught that you done the sago. Yeah, I just did no more tringo. Ah, Lama tringo, Jelam tringo, 3 penny jelly. Yes, I'm the city to throw up 3 jelly. I'm the silent jelly. Ah, they didn't try to take a while. David to jail the bucket. Slatation canna. Or go to pay your rate. Tell it. Rap, Bardo local Sanke, Bardo Ivani. Eva, Bardo Subani, Carri, Yadanga Lion, Timpo, dream of dreams of Mato. The lead up, Cermato, Yella Chapada, Shibatella, Mapo, and Yumo Mambocina, from our nobody. Chill over that Tokyo. Dropped on the top of Tokyo, I give on his Tokyo Penna. Giovanni is a go to the Tachi Givat. Tarawan Sancho Sentina, Data Chinchilla around Todina, the young around data, you're in some time around me, some time around your Wayana. There is Sancho Sentin. Tanga, he said, Tanga Giovanni, Giovanni Hanley did it. Run the Devala Matupa, that's Siki, Tamki, you told it, all it. Simply Tamchilla came by the David John Joel, some Sancho simply that they might know. 3 young round at the top of the Dandy Chunga Grow. They're a thing with me. That's a Giovanni already. But also but to cause it.
So when one attains enlightenment in the first Bardo, in the Dharmakaya, then some may think, it is then like space dissolving in space and then nothing is left. This is not the case. Once one has taken the royal seat of the Dharmakaya, depending on the strong love, naturally and free from any effort, some Bogakaya and Nirmanakaya emanations will appear, like the rays of the sun naturally appear. An infinite amount of Nirmanakaya and some Bogakaya emanations will appear, free from any effort and naturally. And one cannot say, oh, this is a true Nirmanakaya and this is not. Whoever possesses bodhicitta can said to be a Nirmanakaya. So free from any effort, those Nirmanakaya emanations appear. If one has not attained enlightenment into the Dharmakaya in the first Bardo, then it is like waking up from a sleep and thinking, oh, I slept, I must practice virtue. So one's mindful awareness is intervened by a concept of virtue, a virtuous concept. That will lead to enlightenment in the second Bardo, in the Sambhogakaya, through remembering the Yidam deity, for example. When one has died, then one awakens again, and one thinks, I have died. It is like awakening from a sleep. But the thought of I has arisen, I have died, and this thought of I obscures the nature of one's mind. But then one immediately can recall the Yidam deity, such as Tara, or one can recall the Lama. One can have a clear appearance of the generation stage practice, and one's mind will become the deity. Then, through the compassionate power of the deity, the pure lens of the deity will become manifest. This is the enlightenment into the Sambhogakaya in the second stage. If one has not cultivated a firm and stable Yidam deity practice, then one comes to the third chance to attain enlightenment, into the Nirmanakaya. Then concepts of attachment, craving, other afflictive emotions arise, and the thought of I becomes stronger and further increases the obscuration of the mind's nature. But if one has cultivated some bodhicitta, one has attained some independence, and one recalls bodhicitta, then although one has to take a rebirth again, one takes rebirth as in Nirmanakaya. Also, when one has attained some mindful, like some stability in mindful awareness, like we, for example, sometimes we do have stable mindful awareness, sometimes we don't. So when we have a somewhat stable mindful awareness and we can recall bodhicitta, and we think, now I have died, I will have to take another rebirth, may it be for the benefit of all sentient beings, may it become the cause of all benefit and happiness of all sentient beings. Then one has some little independence, for one's self-clinging has somewhat decreased. Then one will take another rebirth, and that is called the third stage of the Nirmanakaya.
Ini jeram ke, jeram tu tak jesi jom, jeram jom. Ini cerci wali tang, jelah jel, ini jeram sampai jelah sampai jole. Maksud cerci wali tang, jelah tu jeram tu jesi jom, jeram tu, celok tu jom, joram jom. Oleh, tadi coba lok saja jom tu, cek tham lalu luar, cek joram tu terwal oleh. Jadi ceci joran datang, joran tu bikin jago lah, jeram bikin. Jadi tata jeram tu ni, ceci joran tu, mungkin cerci wali tang lah, jeram tu sahaja ke soal lah. Jeram apa? Ye oleh, oleh. Jeram apa jadi jenis ye so, tata ngaji, gongji. 도체지 유지 이제 도체를 집어서 라지 그 집어서 그러나 변화 다다 또 습기가 속차도 보다 내가 속아서 저 살리는 트랙터 라지 그 사이는 속차 담는 좀 요라 도체지 이제 변화 그 소비 르크는 나도 담아마지라 그래야 스부 총총 그러더라 내가 소바 대탐지 도시르지 있어. 도시르지 와. 식 아메리카 요 말이야. 아메리카 식으로 해. 아. 예스터데이. 나 사와 이제. 몰라서 식으로 해. 딱발 추만 잡는 문나리. 저거 같아. 도시르지 있어. 대진에 이제서. 들이대 다 지와니 받을 토마토니 ngā shianzo ngā pa tīnzo pa jīwā tēkhi tēni sāngchok tsāngchāng tēne ya tēni ngā tēki tēkhi wā rē tēli tēni Bardo ni mēngyā tēpa pōpōzi Bardo yūri tēra zok tātā ngāni nāng kī yuwa mā rē dīkjē kā zok mē na ya tōngi tēkwa chikchāng rē zok mē pa rā chōwa dūshī dūzī nāmshī tī jētā yuwa rē zok tātā ngāni kī yuwa mā rē zok tēn jōwā ngō rē 어리 다들 같이 라다다 다들 리드 나와 저거요래 그래야 다들 같이 송진이 뛰어서만 루칸데 이거 뛰 나와 잡고요래 근데 나와 잡다 다다음에 막고 쏘고요 너게도 보고서
Then it is said that when the way we take rebirth is likened to the generation stage, and the way we die is likened to the completion stage, when one dissolves into the other. In terms of taking rebirth, there are 4 different types of taking of rebirth. Taking rebirth in a womb, in an egg, through heat, and miraculous rebirth. For example, taking rebirth through heat and moisture. For example, little animals, they naturally, instantaneously are born. For example, when we don't clean our body very well and we sweat a lot and we don't wash, then we will be infested by like human lice. They naturally just appear due to the heat and moisture of our body. But in any case, when it comes to taking a rebirth, although the thought of I has arisen again in the Bardo state, when one merges this with bodhicitta, one still can attain a favorite incarnation. In the Bardo state, we do not have the 5 aggregates, but we have it is called the aggregates of the 4 names. Although we don't have a body anymore, the suffering that we experience is one and the same as though we had a body. We still have the other 4 aggregates of sensation, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. Although there is no body, there is sort of a appearance of a body. The first few weeks of the Bardo state, we have the perception of our old body that we left behind, and the last few weeks of the Bardo state, we have the perception of the next body that we are about to take on in our next incarnation.
딜감들이 다당소 뉴모바 장마트라 뉴모바 강쇼치나 디 와르도 내 제작될 제다 샤연구요 대탐제도 다란게 합당진 무슨 바제를 빼나 빼는 야와라 제외 따라 로바 신 탐지 매트 공사더니 로바 매트 공사더니 이게 나와 샤로나 야와라 제외 따인소这个破坏动吧，对对，行动。对的呀，应该全部那个大不是那个那么的。马里，巴多嘛。如果把提到一下子讲嘛是罗的他。那你下次了巴多些会儿，他巴多罗的，看不出来。讲什么来呢？巴多给他这个了，什么巴多罗了是吧？好嘞。냐와라 동dom제 로마 메르 측송서 나와 드릴 랩송 냐와라 지었다래 드릴 폭바 동바 나는 전랑기 드릴 폭바 제가 저거는 폭바다 동바 로마 메르 측송서 대상이다 이제 냐와가 다래 냐와가 지었다라 저는 다른 무슨 션이 라고 보고 좀 파마테라서 뭐 신차치라 그 대탐지 깨자는들이 나더라 요 다들이 예담다 따와 뒤에서 그 요말이 술 신차 대탐지 지나 그 대차당다고 들이 대탐지 깨자 대들이 깨 운이 되는 기들이 나더라 요 들이 이까비들이 가차 잡고 롱 잡고 되라도 인정상 기본 요리 라왕미 봐 내가 놓고 걸리기 기억을 또 놓고 걸어가 잡고 놓고 제와나 이게서 라왕미 봐 자고 또 롱는 걸어가 잡고 놓고 제와나 이들이 요래서 오늘 라왕미 봤다 제가 지금 정상 차바다 보는 들이 세와 들이 롱만 아마나 다 때라서 봤더니 강도 땅 거요가 그리 롱발로 빼지 도와 측도 도는 측도 봤는데 나섭지 되나 예다가 다에 소지다 지다에서
내가 보셔도 나들어요 스타들아 가봐게 그래서 이게 거기로 그때 가르게 다게
깨지 보고가 되냐와 포바 동바 저서로 와도 포바 동바 남미 조보도 마들아요 이처럼다나 소데 내가 중국어가 차가잖아 대사만이 또 강남배가 중국어나 내가 항상 같이 가사 들어요가 어떻게 내가 가도들이 대사라나 저거요 되게 나왔잖아 되게 간네 조보 보고 깨자는데 야발이 지가 아니어서 참말로 동부 근데 예다를 지었다라 로바 드라이브 도와 매치 도와 죽는 가야만 소화돼 예다를 지었다 제가 지었다라더니 뭐 타는 쪽으로 되네 깜빡 나와서 뭐 나와셔서 야발지나 딱 그도 가지고는 뭐도 타는 쪽으로 들이 깜빡 나와서 되나 샤비 로가라 야발 지었다 해서
나랑 계속 보더니
나도 support 되나 딱 가서 간다고 뭐도 보네 뭐가 깜빡 나와서 뭐도 보네 아직 가야만 참고해 봤더니 나와셔서 해서 내가 보고 저도 살려 그러니까 차와잡으라 나 영영 참아 요래다 그래 차와잡니 이 아마리 이야기하잖아 이 가공송 그만잡 소동구라 소 가서 소동을 차와잡더니 빼 까바나한테 뭐네 탄거도 뭐도 다나 내고 마동제 아마나 고야 토보체로 다창 들이 도독제 때도 다창 나와리처럼 저 셔링을 아마 들으려고 봐. 나와들이 셔도 된다. 뭐 탄거지 깜발은 뭐야 들이 차들이 좀 나와서 마셔고 먹자. 들이 슬라다 플라미 slaata flami tegel chena te nyana gi ang ngo thila ro te nyana gi do ro thila ka so te thila do ro na wa chana flami le che wa yin flami le che ta le so teni ya te ta le ngi ba ma bo ma sa ba ma ja ga ra gi te sai le che na teni zo che ma wa la ga 저거 까보를 저거 뭐를 이 문제지 뭐지 까봐 저거리 나와 착수를 했어. 그다음 나와서 저거들이 플라마까지 지는 데도 저거 매력이 까봐 살을 더 보여라. 제가 살아 매일을 지나. 다시 제가 저거 받쳐라. 이제 받은 저좀 나서 뭐 사이어서 매일을 지어라. 어떻게 다 망고 요리다 저거 상제 바디 투돌 치면은 요리 거기 많아 네 수자로 거기 저저 되나 야고 따지 수자로 뭐 저거 바도 저자로 봐 바디 대비냐 참아 요리 그 제가 때네 다다 선정체를 빼 야고 요리지 하고서 어야 내가 용용 제거래 이 요리들 락탄이 아니 마보라면 그 소리가 나는 거야 미 사다 메뉴 같이 집바를 빼는 Chita yoga wutila, yoga mojo, Hawa Sharasonga. Chiva, the Lopachipo, rolling Hawa Sharu. Milatan, Rotachi, the Pama was a Chivalis at the Sharu. Mila, make you. There's that here, so.
Did you get him somewhere? Did you get him somewhere?
Really?
So if one has not completely purified all one's affective emotions, then depending on whatever affective emotion is predominant, one will take rebirth in any of the 6 realms of samsara. For example, as one is wandering in the Bardo state, and as a sign of being reborn in the hell realms, certain appearances will arise, such as being in a like an area, a country with blazing fire, burning, is a sign of being reborn in the hell realms, or coming close to an empty cave and hearing the sounds of those that one has a strong attachment to, like one's friends or one's parents, those one had a strong attachment to, and one hears them crying out saying, I am here. Again, one will not be able to remember the hidden deity, and one will give rise to concepts of attachment and will go to that place. That is a sign of being reborn in the hell realms. Another sign, or generally when one is wandering through the Bardo state, one without any choice or independence is drawn, depending on one's karma, into a certain direction. It is like one's consciousness is like a feather of a bird being carried away by the winds of one's karma, floating back and forward. One experiences great fear, terrifying appearances arise before one. There is rain, hail, darkness. One is naked. When one then hears one's close ones crying, "Come here, I am here," and one goes there, one will be reborn in the hell of the Shalmali tree. As a sign of being, another sign of being reborn in the hell realms is that one's body appears to be upside down, one's head's down and one's legs sticking up. Rinpoche says, I have experience with that actually, and he says, believe me, I have experience with everything. So one time I was a young child, I had a fever and I was thirsty, so I stole some yogurt from my mother and drank it. Then I had the appearance, it appeared to me as though my head would be down and my legs would be sticking up, as though I would be upside down. And I was crying to my mother and I said, I'm upside down. And my mother said, you must be close to death, you are sitting completely straight. But this was not the experience that I had. So this is a sign of hell realms. A sign of being reborn in the realms of the hungry spirits is if one comes to a country with a lot of smoke and one cannot see anything. A sign of being reborn in the realm of the jealous gods is that one is moving forward, like straight forward, like a fish moving forward. If one has not accumulated too many non-virtuous actions and one has some virtuous propensities such as generosity or moral ethics, but one still possesses a good deal of pride, that one will be reborn in the God realm. And a sign of that is that one appears in a white colored country and one is walking straight up just like a human being. Also a sign of being reborn as a human being is quite similar. One also proceeds through a white-colored country. But being reborn as a human being, one has attachment, and one then sees one's future parents in union and cultivates attachment, and thus is reborn as a human being. There are many different other signs of the different rebirths, and there is a book on the Bardo that is translated into English by Rinpoche, and it would be very advisable if you could study this very well.
되게 강의로 다 망고 요리 다 강의로 다 답을 가르쳐 거예요. 이제는 진시 되게 싫어 인제 다다 송제 무서도 공적보다는 나보다 이놈은 왕들 마셔나 대디랑 왕 요리 빠르 왕 톱도 대탐치 출발하는 게 뭐라나기 또도 요리 올해 자랑치 알레 예담치 다와치 라마치 대탐치 진짜로 다다 왕 톱고 오래 다다 이놈은 뭐라고 좀 바도는 왕 톱고 요리 다다 왕만 톱다 들이 바도는 왕 톱고 요 말이 jadi nyumu baje o te sharing gore sente nyumu mo wang de shotne nyumu wara khador de do wara do sharing gore o de ta lo sang ta no tri ta ta lam sang chun de che do bom ja do yo yo la na chun ne do yo la
And so generally there are many different signs of the different realms that you can be reborn in, but in any case what that is inspiring us is to engage in the practice of mindful awareness for as long as we are alive. When through our practice we do not fall under the power of afflictive emotions and concepts arising, we will gain independence of awareness. Then we will be able to recognize and realize all those to be a confusion, like a dream. When one is able then to remember the hidden deity, or one is able to place one's mind within the view or recall the Lama, then at this point one can gain already independence. If one has attained independence of awareness at this point, then one will be able to have independence in the Bardo state. If one doesn't have any independence now, one will not have any independence in the Bardo state. The self-lives of the afflictive emotions naturally will make the 6 realms appear to you. Like each of the afflictive emotions, color will become manifest in the form of the 6 realms of samsara. Hearing this should inspire one and give rise to the wish to engage in practice.
이 몸상 앞지서 제름 제바다 콜로 대표 제름되다 가담바 geluk바당 가담이 제름 제바다 몸상 앞지서 라방아게 제름 공부요래 그때 가리 공부요래는 당내 되니 사족선 때 자요 들이라는 게야 라왕 톱 마톱바 되나 사족선 보제 때렸대 다른 게 지와 이게 대화고 파마데 sem을 샤요로래 파마지가 때문에 요가에서더니 얘를 차고 가면 람상들이 파마지가 좀 콜로디 고 영향이 야물 라마 영향이 상 지금 라마 영향 진 거래 아니 마게 가상는 것들이 틀릴 까말 때냐 니마다 다와지 때냐 통오 니마다 다와지 돈이다 기지이랑이 이자 니마다 다할 건 전에 뒤반을 다 랑가 납시지 라왕 밀고 보면 잡아 되는구나 쇼코요 쇼코감이 잡아 많이 봐 습기 탐지는 피부 통도 마사족 좀 지어라 사오는 사족 생기다 되면 되게 갈라 좀나 근데 사족 좀 지어라는 게 요래 배나 때다 지름 탐지 돼 아무 자리에 갖고 공부요래 전에 뒤에다가 니마다 다가 된 공부요래 니마다 다가 된 되니다 사원 공부요래 원래 사원도 따로서 다 보고 납시 잡아오래 나발치 봐야 그러면 사원나 저는 진짜 까버리라 대야 뒤식에서 보여요 뒤식은 그 붙여야 그래는 파마가 캄캄한 양 통 나전 니마다 다베티 제 돈이도 굉장히 돈이 봐 근데 라는 납치 되게 홍상도다 딱바르더니 제일로 포마라 홍에 거기서 다 뒤져 보여요 가지나 여기 홍은 좀 들이 파면 날에 속속잖아 되니 진실이 커는 오요래 산촉성 나만이지 밤이 벌어 이게 차고 막는 거 오요 말이야 아래 드레데르 사오는 삼층 때 어제 또는 산제 탑재 살랍지 습지 탑재도 반장들이 고민하는 게 장례들이 다 갈래 파마가 보고 이런 걸 보고 차들이 보고서 리용서도 봤더니 리용서도 봤더니 말이 많다 지용으로 봐 다 지와리로 되래지 그래서 이 종원의 지름
So regarding the way we take rebirth, just like in the generation stage practice, is explained in 5 steps or the 5 actual enlightenments, 5 stages of the generation stage or way we take rebirth. If one has cultivated some bodhicitta and has cultivated or attained some mental independence, then in the Bardo state, when the appearance of one's future parents will become manifest to one, then immediately, instead of falling into this way of craving, one would visualize the hidden deity, such as Chakrasambhara or the Lama Yapyom in consort appearance. Then immediately, as one remembers that, when then the white and the red drops of the parents meet together, one will understand those drops to be in the essential nature of emptiness and compassion, and one would visualize its pure form being a sun and a moon disk. So then one visualizes the sun and the moon disk. Then with this independence, one enters the womb of the parents with the aspiration that as I'm entering this womb, may this incarnation be for the benefit of all sentient beings, and may I cultivate bodhicitta for all beings. Then one will take an incarnation as a bodhisattva. So first, in the generation stage practice, there is the celestial palace. Secondly, there is the visualization of the sun and the moon. Thirdly, on top of that, we visualize the seed syllable of the deity, which represents our own consciousness, which we visualize also in order to maintain mindful awareness. So when the white and the red drops of our parents merge, if we immediately remember the sun and the moon seeds, and our consciousness meditates on the syllable home, for example, then we will carry this mindful awareness within the womb. This is a very important point of the generation stage practice. Then we will carry the twofold bodhicitta with us, and we will not fall under the power of heedlessness. Then from the womb syllable, the deity becomes manifest with all its hand implements, through the light emanating from the seed syllable, which is then the manifestation of the actual Buddha or deity. This is then the stage where we have taken the womb of the parent, and then we have actually established a body. A body has grown in the womb. So this is the way we take rebirth, explained through the generation stage yoga.
Tene teta komba chebo mele ya rang te pa da sa chok sem bo che teta ju la una e de chuni pa do de ni ta so de ni chen ha la ta da cha de da cha ga zhe ge yo le ta de yu de dang ge ren de ni ta chuni pa do so shi ku sa tham chi cha ge yo le chuni pa do ni pa le ba pa do da bo cha 등차 등이라고 이 게다 도코도가 미시스고 보고 등차 등이나
아니 시바 파르드네
얘라 주니 발도가 되는 아무라 시바라 토토치 차 다다 시바라 담제 랑게 주라 그나 어레 홍콩 후보 홍콩 지지가 나기도 접대요. 대답지 너무 받대 마다도 가라 유모 거래 제가 도와도 사용을 해 다고 가라 이 플라잉 바리 이니까 그때서 사족 세우는 데서 플라샤 사용을 해 자와르가 샤 이 샤와샤 이 토샤 이 되게 가로 쏘았다 피네 함 같이 답을 하는 것도 받다마 이 마고 소고요리 샤와타 프로샤차고 주니 바도 와서 이 주니 바도들이 돌아서 다다다도 서바 바도잖아 서바 바도는 많은 참고요리 서바 바도는 참고 다 기와리 주고 담아 대고로리 되나 다다 지지 좀 제는 거야 되게 당마 강양 메고 별라 담을 봤다. 늦게 와야 납치보 맞아. 여와야 납치보. 저 맞춰 봤다더니 가자지나. 다들 그걸 바도로 돼서 요리 뭐 잡고 요리. 별내 직진 되니 소소게 채채 맞아네. 주 많이 붙여. 이걸 봐. 주 많이 붙여. 샤송이 채채 맞아 봤어. 바도로 되고 이렇게나. 제 바도를 내려 다다 때다 다좀 바도도 또 사속 좀 때다오나 바도리들이 다다나 이제 강에 매와 어르지 도다 내다 롱주다 에라서 바닥지 강에 매와 어들이 잘 대리오리 들이 다다 시간긴 탐도 다 대준이 랍당들이 야와도 나와 샤도오리 다다 빼는 제와요 뭐지나 강도 손은 차와 도보랑 이제 차대요라 어디 바도리 뒤 이제와지 도들들이 내로로 또 파송 좀 와서 이것은 지금 감된 제와게 서다 또 마테라스 뭐와지 게다 또 그러와 되게 제버리네 이 바도리 때 대와도 샤네 그거 내 적고요래 뭐 이거 또 봐는 바도리 다 너무 진짜 마고 농구요라 세상도 타도리 되네 이 라왕요 말이 이 민속성 라왕 몇 지원한 거와 또 라왕 통과 터지 그때 나와 또 나그 진시당 원래 사족센터 진시 라왕 통과도 뒤쳐봐야 돼 원래 미치고도 진시와 되어라 대 요즘은 내가 가는 제 적고요 이렇게 지금은 저를 쫓아오나 가는 도 도크요라 라왕 쳐보면은 라왕이 쳐보면은 라왕 통을 죽을 상기에 맞춰봐 제일 로컬 상기에 맞춰봐 바도는 사족 센터를 고초를 대파대다 맞잖아 그래야 잘 보고 열어봐 플라리를 뒤는 대선학 법 쳐보면 어다 지원해요 준비해야지 나가 지초 중시라 인기가 해야 되시라 인기
So if one has gone on to the Bardo state and one possesses some little devotion and bodhicitta, then as one is wandering in the Bardo of Dharmadato, then the peaceful and wrathful deities will appear to one. So generally Rinpoche says we are wandering in the Bardo for about 7 weeks. So then the peaceful deities will appear to us. The peaceful, like if we are like of more pure karma or have not under the power of afflictive emotions, then naturally those pure appearances of deities and their pure lands will appear to us, such as the 5 Dhyana Buddhas or peaceful or wrathful deities. If we are of impure karma and if we are afflicted by negative emotions, then the 6 realms of samsara will appear to us. But if we have this pure karma and the deities will appear to us and we supplicate the deity, then we can be reborn, or the appearance of the Pure Lands will become manifest to us, and then we find liberation. If one does not find liberation in this Bardo of Dharmadato, one continues to wander on into the Bardo of becoming. And there one needs the instructions that we have just received of taking a rebirth, generation stage practice. If one has not received those instructions and one has some virtues and some non-virtues, some deeds that one has committed, then it is very possible that one may wander in this Bardo state for a long period of time. Also, sometimes when one has not lived one's full lifespan, or one has died an untimely death, then it is possible that one may have to stay in this Bardo state until the lifespan would have come to an end. Then if one has cultivated some bodhicitta and generosity, then one will experience little difficulties in that state. One will meet with friends, one will have a pleasant dwelling place, one will have some wealth, one will not experience many difficulties. But on the other hand, if one has given rise to anger, then immediately the perception of hell will become manifest. If one has been a loving person, then wherever one goes, one will meet with harmonious friends. Then even in the Bardo state, one will live in a pleasant dwelling place. Those, for example, are the outcome or the result of actions that we did, such as smoke offerings or the offering of dharmas and so forth. Those root of virtue will then lead to the pleasant appearances of the Bardo state. But if we have continuously given rise to anger or jealousy, then the terrifying appearances of the Bardo will become manifest without any independence. Then, without any choice, we will have to take a rebirth in these three lower realms. If the main instruction is on what it all depends on is whether or not we have gained independence of mind. The main instructions therefore is to cultivate bodhicitta and to maintain mindful awareness, to gain independence of the mind. Otherwise one will be carried around by the winds of karma like the feather of a bird. If one has attained this independence of mindful awareness and bodhicitta, one may gain enlightenment in the Dharmakaya. If one has cultivated devotion into the three jewels, and if one is able to remember the deity, each time one is able to do that, one will receive the blessings of the deity. So these are the instructions on how we take a rebirth again.
Terita keren wejiso thari chesi jomar joramji joram pe ki cheboyore joram tela tongini chesi joma ole tongda cheboyore chelokte 돈이 봐 가는 조런 때문에 했잖아 돈을 내로 사자집이 내로 대주 또 그거래 별 조런 정도 라마 주고 좋아서 땅나 다 당은 사제강 습지들이 나가서 조정 빼 망고시 빼라 공부요래 빼라 어래 나사 파산 강조 공부요래 대답지 좀잘 되니 포토 담지 철들은 라마를 하는데 어래 라마를 참 다 무슨 이담 깨는데 보나 포토 이자에 강상게 돼서 야염주라 참 염야브라 참 야브토고 홍로 참 근데 조른 데서도 그렇게 따지나 그걸로게 가려야 되는 고대가 도구비 내려 고대가 추탐지 제가 망나요 우고 다도 우고도 대발도 왔다와는 요 말에 내가 없다 맞고 세번한 길에 사장 좀 뭐라 나 샘도 타지 샘이 동바 타지 동도 나타 타말 바탕서 도와도 다지가 봐 내다 유모가 다감지 이스다 망고도 차지요 했지 다과 사지가 살아 오 주스도 사지 담도 총과 즉 대양 취지 연대 저기 나도 샘사 동나 갔다 왔지 속샘을 내놓고 통로 오 사지 담지 대를 차고 있지 동시에 내가 망고지 차대고는 탑톱도 사지 탐지 사지 깨를 통는데 대학 동반이는 저거요. 지 동시 바탕 내로 동시 바랍래. 우리 샘지 탐지가 좀 저러고 똑바야. люди 조금 맞아 참아. 템들이 동사는 납치 생각을 납치 때문에 동반이라.
Kann es
납시 동반이 통로가 공역 나다라 나다 차신 조건 뭐 백바 줄 돌아 뭐 홍지도 나다 통 조건도 접대 나갈 봐 매발 공부를 납시대 문에잖아 요 말봐 요거도 대바 좀 요 말, 나오냐 봐도 봐 근데 매일은 그 말, 심사 봉송도 싸우는 게 동반하는 게 싸워야 될 때, 무엇도 치마도 봐. 동나 요게 그냥 lap토프 말봐. 지도 사자 지금 내로 돈을 줘 봐. 돈을 내로 콜데니와 동반이 뭐지 돈도 받다. 됐다 마도 받았지. 내가 다른 철학라 배잖아. 내가 좋아 배잖아. 좋아 좋은지 돈이 과도 대학은 미적 차이는 매대 류차 차는데 매대 류는 매리더라. 무슨 매대 류는 매대 류 말에 샘리 매대 샘을 로래. 야 샘까지 더 소시 샘을 적대 샘 따와는 도배하려 말라. 나빠다는 매파마에 코드에 그렇지. 요파마에 자외다 맞아. 요새는 사제가 통로 말했지. 매일 고대와 샤요요리 거기다 와대. 하고서 어때 예비에 다시 그런 셔츠를 제럼 도름이요. 제로 셔츠를 와. 하고서 와.
So this for the generation stage, and then as for the completion stage, which is likened to the dissolution at the time of our death, this is a very important point, a very essential point. When we engage in the practice of Mahamudra, when everything dissolves, then this is what is meant with the dissolution stage. For example, if we engage in a ritual practice, we visualize sentient beings, the refuge tree, the guru, and so forth. And in the end of the practice, one dissolves back into the other. First, the celestial palace dissolves into the yab, the yum. The yum dissolves into the yab. Then it dissolves into the lama. And in the end, everything dissolves. That is the dissolution stage. The reason why we engage in the completion stage practice is to understand that all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, although they are so extensive, in actuality they have no inherent existence, they have no reality to them. They are a concept made by the mind, and the mind's nature is empty. Ordinarily, we are overpowered by self-clinging, and there becomes a multitude of self and others. If we purify the state, then we understand that the Buddhas of past, present, and future, although there is a multitude, are essentially one in nature. So when we look at that nature, the nature of mind, it is a union of clarity and emptiness, abiding like the expanse of space. If one looks at that nature, one understands that within that nature the Buddha is contained. So one ultimately realizes the single nature of mind. Although there is a multitude of appearances, essentially it is of one essential single nature. So when one understands this at the time of dying, when one dissolves into the other, it is like the completion stage where one of the visualization dissolves into the next one. Everything has, for example, dissolved into the hum syllable, and then there is the nada on top of the hum syllable. Everything dissolves into this nada, and in the end it becomes very subtle and very fine, and in the end it becomes nothingness, and one remains within a state free from reference. This is likened to the state when at dying our consciousness then dissolves into emptiness. This consciousness has no inherent existence. and yet it cannot said to be non-existing, for it is a union of clarity and emptiness. The nature of clarity is emptiness, and the nature of emptiness is clarity. It can neither said to be existing, nor can it said to be non-existing. When we realize the nature of mind, Mahamudra, we realize that both samsara and nirvana are empty of self-nature. So this is the purpose of the generation stage practice. For example, now we take one single person and we say, this body, this is the person. Very easily we can establish that this body is not the person. Then one could say, oh, then this person is the mind. But if you look at the mind, you can't reach it. It abides like space. And yet it cannot said to be existing, for it has not been seen, not even by the Buddhas. It cannot said to be non-existing, for all of samsara and nirvana appear within this mind. It is the view of the middle way. So this is the instruction of the birth and dying, which is likened to the generation stage and completion stage practices.